Welcome, gamers, to Basement Arcade Pause Menu, the show where we hit pause, sit back, and just chill. I'm your host, Ben Magnet, and today on the show, I have a YouTuber who is also a fan of one of my favorite video game systems of all time, the Nintendo 3DS. Please welcome to the show, Emily. Emily, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great, Ben.
All right, so you run the YouTube channel, or you host the YouTube channel, Orbalology, or am I saying it correctly? Because I know literally right before we started recording, I was trying to say it, and I still was saying it wrong.
It's all right. It's Orbalology. And so for those who aren't familiar, it's a play on one of the magic systems in the Legend of Heroes Trails series.
Okay, one of the many RPGs I have not played, unfortunately.
But it's a long one, so I don't blame you.
Well, of course, with a lot of different JRPGs, they're like stupid long. I mean, well, not stupid long, but they're like a good 40, 50 some odd hours. Because I think the longest time I put into any JRPG, I want to say was Star Ocean to the End of Time for the PS2. That one took me a very, very long time to beat. But we're not talking about Star Ocean. We are talking about the Nintendo 3DS. But before we go into the Nintendo 3DS, I would like to know a little bit more about you. So, Emily, how did you get into video games?
So I started very young. My dad was getting into computer gaming when I was like 5 or 6. And when he would buy himself a game, he would buy me a game, and we would be kind of gaming in the same room next to each other. So it was a very nice little bonding experience where I would play all the humongous entertainment games like Putt Putt and Freddy Fish, those type of games. So that was.
And now I just got the flashbacks.
Yes, that was my childhood, and my first console then was the Game Boy Color. So I was about 10 at the time when that came out. So a lot of great memories. I think the first few games was like Super Mario Brothers and Pokemon Silver.
Oh, yeah, Pokemon
that was my
Silver.
Foundation.
Pokemon Silver represent right there. That's it's my all-time favorite, and dare I say, the best one of the entire Pokemon franchise.
It's my favorite too. I've been meaning to play Soul Silver on the DS, but I've been slacking.
Yeah, let's not talk about Soul Silver. I mean, I have Soul Silver. No, I have Soul Silver. I do have the game. I unfortunately don't have my original copy of Silver version anymore because the battery died. And long before I realized you can change the batteries, just take it to a local game store. They can repair it. It's an easy fix. It's nothing too hardcore. But before I realized they can do that, I just went ahead and sold my copy of the game. And then when my best friends got me just the cart, because I was an idiot and I didn't realize that Pokemon games don't go on sale after a while. Yeah, so I unfortunately fell into that trap. But the reason why I asked you to be on the show today is you recently put up a video about collecting for the Nintendo 3DS on your YouTube channel. And the Nintendo 3DS is a system that's very near and dear to my heart. So before we get into that, how exactly did you get into the 3D? I mean, I'm pretty sure the answer is for everyone. It's like, I saw the 3DS, I thought it was cool, so I went and bought it. But what makes the 3DS so special to you as a gamer in particular?
Well, actually, the 3DS was the system that got me back into gaming. So
me too.
When I went to college and then grad school, I kind of had gaming on the way back end. And that's how I missed out on the DS era and everything, like the PS3 and all those systems. So it wasn't until this guy, A Link Between Worlds, came out that it got me super excited for gaming again. And I picked up the special edition along with the game. And yeah, it was then that really kind of kickstarted my love for gaming and collecting again.
All right, so audio listeners, I know you can't see, but I mean, both of us, she has black hair, I have blonde hair. Are we twins? Because
it's sounding like it.
No, because you and I literally have the same exact story of how we were in college, we were in a bit of a gaming funk, and A Link Between Worlds brought us back. That's literally almost the exact beat for beat. It's like, well, I guess I have a gaming sister now. This is awesome.
Yeah, I've heard a few people that kind of experienced something similar to us, but not many. So this is great.
Yeah, because for the longest time when I was in school, video games were also on the way back end. Like when the PS5 was, or not PS5, my God, the PS4 was coming out. Mm-hmm. I was I want this, but I don't know if I really do. because you're in that transitional period of college where you're trying to figure out who you really are, what you really want to be, and all that jazz. But I still had my 3DS. I was still playing games, but I was very like, I don't know, nothing really interests me. And then Link Between Worlds comes out. I'm like, oh, that looks really neat. And one day I was with my mom at a Best Buy, and I was like, man, I really want this game, but I don't have the money for it. And she's like, well, I'll get it for you. You're going through school. School's hard. Next thing I know, I am dumping so many hours into the game. I'm looking up guys to try and find all the little octopi, the little Maori, I think they're called, or more. Yeah, the little octopus dudes.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name too.
Yeah, I'm trying to find those guys, and I'm trying to get everything. And after I beat the game, I'm just sitting there going, this was one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had in my entire life.
Did you play A Link to the Past? Because that was my favorite game on the Game Boy Advance when they made that port. And so when I saw A Link Between Worlds coming out as the sequel, that's what really got me hyped.
Unfortunately, I've never played Link to the Past. The very first Zelda. Yeah, it is. Well, thankfully the MIDI's hooked up to the TV. It's definitely one of those games that's on my I must play before I die list. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my whole experience with Nintendo growing up started with the Game Boy Pocket. We got Game Boy Pockets, and then we begged our parents for Game Boy Colors, Game Boy Advance, of course. Then I got a DS for Christmas, and the 3DS was the first system I bought myself. But for home consoles, it was mostly we were mostly a PlayStation family until the Wii came out in 2006. And that Christmas, I got myself a Wii and a copy of Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess, and that was the first Zelda game I played the whole way through.
Very cool. Yeah, I actually haven't played most of the console Zelda games. It's all been mostly handheld, except the ones that have been on the Switch.
Yeah,
definitely missed all those eras.
Yeah, let's just say, actually, the reason why I bought my 3DS in the first place was to play Ocarina of Time. Because I've told the story a million times, but I had an N64, but when I did have my N64, it wasn't to play Ocarina or Mario 64. I wanted it for Pokemon Stadium and Mario Kart. That's all I cared about. It was Mario Kart, Pokemon Stadium, Smash Bros, and I didn't care about anything else. Fast forward to years later, I'm talking to some friends of mine, and I'm saying, yeah, I never played Ocarina of Time. And they go, blasphemy. So when Ocarina and eventually Majora's Mask came out on the 3DS, it was like a godsend, but we will definitely get to that. So as you know, the Nintendo 3DS eShop is closing very soon. You made a great 27 odd minute video about collecting for the 3DS today in the waning days of the store. What was the driving, besides the store closing soon, what was the driving force for you wanting to make that video?
So I like to do kind of educational sort of videos about collecting on my channel, and the 3DS is one of the systems that I've been really big into collecting these past few years, even before the eShop closure announcement, because it's one of my favorite systems. And so I was getting a lot of questions about what sort of games people wanted, like they could still buy, with the increasing prices we've been seeing. So that was sort of the thought behind that video specifically. And just to give some tips and kind of pointers of how you might want to prioritize some releases before prices get even more astronomical.
Yeah, I recently went to Portland Retro Gaming Expo, and definitely one of the games or one of the systems that was on my list for hunting was 3DS games, because just like you, I also love hunting for the 3DS, not just because it's my favorite system, but also because the cases are small and I don't have a lot of space in my house.
They have nice spines. They look nice on the shelf.
They really do. Unfortunately, I don't have a shelf. I have a dresser that has all my games in it, but they do necessarily look nice. So going to your video for a hot second, you mentioned that a lot of games, especially the first party Nintendo titles, are very easy to find, such as Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 3D Land, or even this little bitty Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, or maybe even the original Luigi's Mansion. Was there a game or games in that video that you wish you were able to talk about, but after you published it, you're like, dang it, I forgot this one?
Let's see. I'm sure I omitted plenty of things. But as far as, I guess, games that are still readily available, you really can't go wrong with most of the first-party Nintendo games, so even ones I didn't mention, because they just had so many different printings. And a lot of them also got world editions, which is basically just the North American carts, but packaged in a way to sell to a different region. And that region specifically didn't have an eShop, so they just have a huge surplus of physical games still. That's why you can buy a lot of these games brand new for MSRP. So.
Oh, actually, that was one other thing I was hoping to talk to you about. In your videos, in your 3DS one and other videos, you mentioned about, or you talk a lot about buying from these websites where it is, like you said, it's a North American cartridge and it's not technically region locked, but the packaging is much different from a North American cart. How did you find out about those? Because I only just recently found out about sites like Play Asia and from your channel NIS America, and I'm like, these games. I mean, if they work on my system, cool. But at the same time, it's like, are these like I guess I'm a little cautious. So how did you find out about that?
I'm a researcher in real life, so I just love researching things I'm interested in. So just did a lot of internet digging and some I guess touch and go when it comes to buying games. And I got plenty of world editions in the mail by accident because of third-party sellers, for example, on Amazon, who like have a stock photo of the standard release, but then they send you something with a little world emblem. You're like, what is that?
Oh.
But if you look at the cart, they're exactly the same as our North American standard editions for the 3DS specifically. And so I guess after consulting forums and just testing them out myself in person, that kind of helped solidify kind of that information of what are these and why they're different, and that sort of thing.
Because I know recently a friend of mine through Twitter, she messaged me about how I can go to sites like Play Asia where where the box itself is a Hong Kong version for like say a Switch game or something. Because thankfully the Switch is region free. We don't have to worry about anything. We just have to make sure the game is in English. And it's because there's a certain game I've been wanting to get physically for the Switch for the longest time, River City Girls. Never been able to get at LRG. I have some problems with LRG, to be perfectly honest. But the fact that I can get this game from Play Asia, I can get it super cheap and it will work on my Switch, which is great. But one little collecting habit I have is I like to make sure all my games are somewhat uniform, if that makes sense. So when you were talking about the World Editions for the 3DS, what are the major differences from a World Edition 3DS case compared to a regular North American case?
Sure. So I have an example here of Bravely Default. And the biggest kind of thing that people look at is on the front cover, there's this little green, blue, and gray circle. Usually it's on the lower right, but sometimes it's in other places just on the front there. And that just indicates that this is the version that's being sold at UAE, Malaysia, Singapore, and those regions. When it comes to the spine, there's no difference that I've noticed on any of the copies I've seen. But then on the back, with all the little information, you could doesn't follow the North American standard to see if your Switch case is a first print release or not, using that kind of barcode number that they've used both for their 3DS games and the Switch games. And there's also a little colored triangle. But other than that, that's the only kind of variation. The exception to this, when it comes to cover art, is I think for Ocarina of Time, they have the European cover for the World Edition instead of what we got here with the gold cover.
Okay. So really it's just like the one tiny
it's cosmetic.
It's just one little cosmetic, which thankfully it's good because I bought a also another Nintendo system that I know is region free is a Game Boy because I went to England last summer and I was in a store and they had a copy of Mario Superstar Saga and Yoshi's Island Yoshi's Island. And of course, all it says is the PAL regions. But so I haven't plugged them in yet, but I can only assume that if I were to plug in, since this is the PAL region and it goes mostly for England, parts of Europe, and Australia, I can only imagine they just spell color different.
I think so. Honestly, a lot of the Game Boy games from Nintendo, if you buy them in Japan, they have an English option.
Oh.
So if you play them in your English or in your American, Game Boy, they should work in English. It's just for select things like some Kirby games and like Dr. Mario, those kind of things. But yeah, Nintendo didn't introduce, I think, region locking really until I think after the Game Boy era. The DS, the original DS, most of those games are region free as well. And some of them also have English on the cart, like Chrono Trigger does. So I actually recently bought a Japanese copy of that to play, since the one, in the US is like over $100 now.
I can only assume it was a lot cheaper.
It was much cheaper. It was only like 20 something dollars.
$20?
Exactly.
Oh.
Well, okay. It was like 23. And then there's import fees and things, but I have it like in a haul, so it's not that bad.
I mean, yeah, I would say import fee. I would say like to get it shipped, because you're buying it from Japan, because it has to cross the entire Pacific Ocean to get to us. So I would say like that doesn't matter.
So it's not that super heavy. So shipping fees, not that bad. Especially if you have other things in the package, it's worth it.
My gosh, you got it for $20. I got mine for $75. And
yours is the standard North American, so you could resell it easily. Whereas if I were to try to resell mine, I have to explain, like, it does have English on it, and people might be skeptical.
Although, to be fair, because apparently the version, because I got lucky on eBay. The only problems with my copy of Chrono Trigger is just the case is a little beat up. That's about it. Everything on the inside looks great. It's pristine. And apparently I got one of the first runs of Chrono Trigger because I have the poster.
Yep.
And I got stupid lucky on the eBay buy with that. So I'm like, oh, $75. I look it up on Price Chart. It's like, hold up, this game is actually worth how much?
Yeah, sometimes you could get really lucky with listings or sometimes auctions. On there, I've noticed.
Yeah.
You have to be diligent, though.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's one little trick about, especially for DS cards, because I mostly collect for my Game Boy Advance, and the DS and 3DS. Like I said, space is a factor. I don't have a whole lot of room left. And especially for the DS cards, I know that the best way to tell between a real and a fake one is if there's a little divot on the top of the game card. I mean, if it doesn't have this, if it's smooth, it's a repro, it's a fake, don't buy it.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell online, though, with that. I've been a little skeptical buying some DS listings recently because of that.
Yeah, I am just like, once my Chrono Trigger came in and I saw I had the divot, I breathed the biggest sigh of relief, because like, did I just waste $75 on a fake Chrono Trigger? If I did, I'm going to be oh, thank God it's real.
Yeah, that's nice to think about 3DS. They haven't, made repos or fakes for that system yet.
I've seen a few repos actually, but they're all Pokemon games.
DS games, but they package it like a.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I have
emulate a 3DS yet.
Yeah, you're right. I have seen DS repros, but I haven't seen 3DS repros. I was mistaken. My bad.
That's okay.
So going back to the World Edition, what's the best website to buy games? Because you held up Bravely Default earlier. I can only imagine buying the World Edition of Bravely Default is 10 times cheaper than trying to find a North American version.
Yeah, I think. Well, in this case, I bought the standard edition on Amazon, third-party seller. They sent me this, even though the stock photo was North American, but it was still like MSRP at the time. So I was a little salty, but that's what happens sometimes. But I think a lot of people, when they get one of these World Editions in the US, they don't want to keep them. So they often just sell them really cheaply on eBay just to get rid of them and try to, collect the more desirable version.
Which is, of course, would probably be the standard North American card.
The other, I guess, caveat, do I have an example here? Is you could also get the Canadian version, which has the little FR on the cover, usually. And so some people in the US don't like getting those, but if you're in Canada, it's the regular release they would usually get, since it includes French on the card along with English. So lots of different options. And then you're holding up the select versions.
Yeah.
So some people don't like getting those, but and on the spine they have like a little coin symbol, which makes it a little bit different on the shelf, if that's a concern.
Oh yeah, it does. And actually, I don't think I ever noticed that. to be perfectly honest, I never noticed, because I just saw this at a retro game store. It was for $20, or it was for 20. It was actually, they were selling it for $25. I even had a $5 coupon, so I essentially got $20 as I would have gotten this new when this came out back when, like, say Target or Walmart was
Yeah.
selling it on the regular. So for me, it's like $20 from the Nintendo Select. I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
I
actually
am
been my philosophy right now when it comes to just trying to collect right now for the 3DS is I've been trying to get the things that don't have the world editions or the select versions because I feel like those will be more obtainable at lower prices after the eShop closure.
mhm.
So that was a point I think I tried to emphasize in my video on my channel.
Yeah, because there are games, especially when I went to Portland. One of the games I was actually trying to hunt down was a Kirby game, Kirby's
Mhm.
Extra Epic Yarn.
Mm.
And I see a North enough. I'm thinking it's like, oh, it's a Kirby game. It's probably super cheap. I could probably get it. And I almost dropped my bag when I saw how, because I saw one store or one booth that was selling the game. It was CIB. It was in the case, some like as in like a glass case, and I'm thinking, okay, there's Kirby, and then I see how much they're selling for, and I'm like, $100.
Yeah, that's what happens with a lot of the last releases on the 3DS, and I don't think that one actually saw a World Edition, so there's fewer of that actual game in circulation.
Well, there
So
goes
that's
that. There
why
you
the
go.
prices have really shot up, unfortunately.
I was just about to ask you how much is the World Edition if you know
I
if you
haven't
knew,
seen
but
one. If there's one in existence, I haven't seen them.
it's like,
So,
dang it. Okay. Well, at least we're getting Return to Dreamland Deluxe for the Switch, so
yeah, yeah.
that's the good news.
And I don't know if do you have a Wii U?
I unfortunately do not.
Okay, I don't either, but I do hear the Wii U version of that game's better.
Oh, even better. So you were also showing off some of your 3DS collections. Now, especially with the eShop closing up, I've been seeing some people online on Instagram where they would mod their 3DS systems to high heaven and they would pack a bunch of games. They would like essentially they would jailbreak it, put a bunch of emulation, or just do the hoist the colors, if you will, and put a whole bunch of stuff. Are you since a lot of 3DS games, especially nowadays, are rising in price, and some of them, like Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, don't have world editions. Um, what are your thoughts and feelings on people who take 3DS systems and emulate that, since the system is now discontinued and technically Nintendo's not getting any profit from these games whatsoever?
Uh, if you want to do that, I don't see an issue personally. If there are games that I missed out on that I couldn't buy digitally, because they actually delisted some games, like their Project Cross Zone games, you can't buy that on the eShop anymore. So you could track down a used copy for a high price or emulate it, are kind of your only two options now, because that's unlikely going to see some sort of remake in the future, given just how many IPs are in that. But yeah, I think if people want to do that, I wouldn't really advertise it until the eShop officially closes, personally. Yeah, I think, I don't know how well the uh, jailbreaking or the custom homebrew kind of scene works on it because I haven't tried it myself. I'm probably going to test it out after the eShop closes. And I'm sure there's some DLC that you have to complete games for or that have already been pulled off of the eShop that I wanted to experience. So the only way to do that is in the emulation scene nowadays.
Mm,
Um, so yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I'm a physical collector at heart, though, so that's why
yeah.
I've been really focusing on just beefing up my collection before the inevitable closure.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I am team physical 100% all the way, but also there are times where, because thankfully there is a way to still add funds to to your 3DS or even your Wii U eShops, as long as you have them linked, as long as you have like because it's Nintendo ID on the 3DS and it's just your regular Nintendo account, as long as you have like those merged and linked, you can add funds to one and they'll automatically transfer to this thing, which is good because it's dying in March. The end of March is when it's done and kaput. So
And any funds you don't use, you could transfer to your Switch account.
yeah, which is absolutely which is perfect. Which is like hallelujah for that. Because when they said, "Hey, we're not going to accept credit cards at this day, and we're not going to accept eShop gift cards at this day," but then you have a whole extra year to add to still buy and download games. I'm sitting there going, "What's the point? Just let me add debit and credit cards straight to my thing." I mean, granted, I went to had to jump. It's not a hard hoop to jump through, but still a hoop nonetheless.
Yeah, it's kind of odd how they did that, I guess, trickle down system of removing options for buying games. I don't know how expensive it was to maintain those servers or those functionalities. So that's probably why they did it, or just to kind of ease us away and as a warning, like you should buy these games now.
Because
so a little bit of fear tactics.
Yeah, probably, but especially with games like Epic Yarn that we talked about, Fire Emblem is probably going up there in price. Is going to go up there in price eventually.
Well, the Fates one already is if you have the special edition. That one's bonkers.
Yeah, when you were talking about the Fates edition, I didn't even know the Fates special edition existed, and then I found out about it, and then I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go check that out. Nope.
Yeah,
I definitely need to get the DLC because I have Conquest. I bought the DLC for Birthright, so essentially I have Conquest and Birthright, but I don't have Revelations, so I'm definitely going.
That one ties everything together, so I feel like it's an essential DLC. So it's unfortunate that a lot of people will be locked out of that, and after next month. But
yeah, unless you could get that specialty card, but I'm not paying that much money for a special.
I don't think it's worth it. At that point, I would just say emulate if you can't buy it before the eShop closes.
So before the eShop closes, what do you have? Some games that you want to get before the shop closes, and that you're totally fine with having digitally. The cart is just way too expensive, because that's how myself, and I can only assume a bunch of other gamers feel. Like, once again, going back to Kirby, the physical cart is over $100. I want the physical cart, I really do, but no. I can get on the eShop. It's stupid cheap. It's like $20, less than $20 on the eShop. I'll just grab that before it closes. So what games would you say buy on the eShop now? Because once this thing's done, the physical carts are going to go even higher in price.
Sure. So for my collection, I actually am pretty content with what I have physically. I just bought my last really expensive game, which was over $100, and I'm a little ashamed to have bought it the price I did.
What was it?
It was the last Professor Layton in the Azran Legacy game. I had to buy it right after the Nintendo Direct. I was like, oh gosh, and like the price was like it shot up like $50 more than it already was. So I paid a stupid amount of money for it, but I really just wanted to have my complete collection of the Layton games, and I don't really know whether or not we might talk about this later. What games are going to see Switch remasters or beyond? So that was a little bit up in the air, and there's something about this 3DS functionality that I think it's going to be hard to remaster for certain games. And I think the Layton series, with all their puzzles, they do use the lower touchscreen. So it's going to be hard to, I think, translate later on. But in terms of what digital games I do recommend, instead of maybe going the physical route and being dumb like me.
I wouldn't say you're dumb. You are a collector at heart. The way I see it, Emily, as long as you do what you're getting yourself into, it's like, what? I'm okay with this. I may not like it, but I accept it, and I want it.
As long as it's not an impulse buy, I think that's you could totally, I think, plan on it. For that, I threw a bunch of like Amazon gift cards that I was racking up on it, so it did help.
Oh, there you go.
So that was nice, but Anyway, definitely. As I mentioned, the two Professor Layton games, if you like puzzle games and you're excited for the new one that was just announced, I would definitely recommend getting those. And the Professor Layton versus Phoenix Bright collab game, I don't really see that getting a remaster because it's really hard, I think, for collaborative games to see a second life later on because of just how many, things they have, the different, I guess, branches have to, talk and all that.
Yeah, the rights, the
all the copyrights and
yeah,
restrictions and all that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why that's one of like logical, like going on a quick little side tangent. That's one of the reasons why I thought Sora was never going to be in Kingdom in Smash Bros. As much as pun kinda and wholeheartedly intended, double pun there. My heart wanted Sora in Smash Bros, but my brain was saying not going to happen. I mean, even though he's technically a Square-owned character, there's a lot of Disney elements surrounding him. His Keyblade has a Mickey Mouse head. Disney's probably not going to play ball, but they played ball.
I think they really worked hard to get him on. So I think that was all it needed. But But outside of Those games I just mentioned, a lot of the Atlas titles, if you're a JRPG fan, definitely get those, like the Shibigami Tensei games. Definitely, there's rumors that Atlas might remake them and put them on the Switch later, but I think that's hard to know. And like with the Etrian Odyssey games that just announced they're remastering the DS versions, not the 3DS versions for 1 and 2. So you're going to be missing out on the Untold Story modes. So something to keep in mind. So they might lose some functionality when you have that. Radiant Historia is one of my favorite games on the 3DS. And it'd be nice if that was ported later on. But if it's not, I think definitely secure that on the eShop if you can. But yeah, what else? I guess maybe Kid Icarus Uprising when it comes to the Nintendo IPs. Even the World Edition for that is pretty pricey.
Oh, wow. How much is it going for? How much is the World Edition for that?
I haven't seen people ask $100 for that. But
oh my God, $100.
Oh,
yeah.
So who knows what will happen after the eShop closure. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else. I have some games here.
I mean, you did mention Etrian Odyssey, and I did want to talk to you about that because right after I saw your video and how you're talking about, because I'd never even heard of the Etrian Odyssey games. I want to say until I saw your video, and the fact that that game sounds like it was made for the 3D, for the DS and the 3DS, because you make your map as you explore the dungeon, and that's one of the things is like, that's actually kind of neat. You actually get to make your map and see, go this way, go that way. And when they were remaking it for the Nintendo Switch, part of me is like, that's cool, but also I'm a little, I want to say cautiously optimistic, because this isn't the first time Nintendo has brought DS games over to the Switch. The first example and only example I could think of is the Mega Man ZX games that were DS games, but mostly the bomb screen wasn't necessarily used. It was used as a map. The action was on the top screen. The bomb screen was the map, and they're able to we'll just have essentially make the bomb screen a mini map, or you can change it however you like. While it's great that these games are getting remastered or at least put up on the Switch for modern audiences, what sort of problems do you think that will arise because you don't necessarily have a touch screen to play with or to help draw the map out?
Yeah, I think we've seen this already with The World Ends With You. So that saw a Switch remaster from the original DS version, and the DS version was so innovative at the time with how they use the stylus on the lower touch screen. And it's really hard to translate that into the Switch controls. And a lot of people didn't really enjoy that game because of how difficult it was, and it just wasn't the same. So I feel like for the Etrian Odyssey games in particular, losing that drawing the map with a stylus, it might kind of make it less fun. There are a lot of other first-person dungeon crawler games that are really popular on the Switch, like I think the Mary Skelter games from Idea Factory got ported over to the Switch that a lot of people enjoy. The new one from NIS America, the Labyrinth games, what's it called? The Labyrinth of Galleria, I think is the new one. And Labyrinth of Refrain that was released a few years ago. Those are pretty popular, and they don't really have the map making mechanics that the Etrian Odyssey games had, though. So I'm just kind of afraid it's going to turn a little bit more into a generic franchise that you just see in a lot of other first-person dungeon crawlers when you take out that functionality.
I mean, thankfully, the Switch itself is a touchscreen, so
it is. But we don't have a stylus. I think it'd be kind of weird to draw that, and it's pushed on the corner what they were showing in the direct. So I just don't know how well that's going to translate. It could work.
Yeah, it could. Maybe if they were able to have maybe not a split screen, but at least a way where it's kind of toggle it so you can have it push a button and then you can draw your map and still have a smaller screen to look of what direction you're going. Because one of the games I was super excited to get for my Switch was Super Mario Maker 2. And I have yet to make a single level in Mario Maker because I missed, once again, I never owned a Wii U. I missed out on the Wii U, and I think Mario Maker on the Wii U is absolutely perfect, especially with the gamepad, because it comes with a stylus, and looking at people or watching videos of people make levels with the stylus, just like going boom, 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 like making it super quick. It's like, wow, that's great. Whereas I'm over here because I like to play my Switch docked. I'm like missing buttons. I'm putting things where they're not supposed to go in the tutorial, and I'm just going, ugh, and I just go back to just playing other hard levels that people have been making.
Yeah, I could see. I haven't played the Mario Maker games yet, but I could see how that could be a barrier, just the entry of making your own levels, and just how inefficient it is to use, the controls versus the stylus in that regard.
Yeah, I think that maybe because who developed Etrian Odyssey? Was it Sega or was it
Atlas?
Atlas. Oh, Atlas is owned by Sega, but yeah. So
But now they're owned by Sega. But before it was,
yeah,
I think the pre-merger.
Oh, no. But I mean, one way to probably get people to buy is like, hey, so by the way, the Switch has a touchscreen. If you buy the physical copy, here's a stylus for you to help make those maps.
Yeah, I've seen some stylus used for like some like drawing games. I don't know how well they work, but I don't know if you've seen some of those kind of like third party things. I've always been curious about them. I feel like they don't work that well, but I think it'd be cool if they brought back a stylus.
Yeah, I would definitely say a stylus would help, especially when you have something like I would definitely think Mario Maker deserved, or Mario Maker 2 deserved a stylus. Because just making a level with my controller, it just doesn't feel right because I'm like constantly going, like clicking buttons, going, instead of just like, say I have a pen here going boom, 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 like drag you, make you. That's like, it's so nice and simple. To quote Kingdom Hearts, it's so simple and clean. Whereas with the controller, it's a very, clunky. So there are other systems from your videos that I want to talk about, but you also mentioned that you have a video that I haven't watched yet. I will get to it, but it's your all-time favorite 3DS games. Like if you're collecting for the 3DS, these games are like must-owns for any collector, for anyone who enjoys the system. So what are some of your top, say, your top five 3DS games of them all?
Sure. So my number one is A Link Between Worlds.
Mine too.
That goes without saying. Like even just minus all the kind of nostalgic I have and the meaning behind it, for me, it's just a cool game where you have Link, go into the walls, and it was a different way to, I think, have that top-down Zelda experience. That was really pretty cool. Radiant Historia is my next one. I think it's one of the best JRPGs on the 3DS system. It's just how they tackle time travel and rewriting history. I thought was brilliant. And I really liked, this was actually originally a DS game, but I felt like the 3DS just had so many great quality of life improvements and voice acting. And they also added a third kind of story path. That was fun to see. You can definitely buy this this is one of the more pricey Atlas games right now, but it's definitely still in the eShop, and you can technically still buy the original DS game fairly cheaply too. Most of the experience is kind of the same, but the 3DS version is definitely an upgrade.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of things, or a lot of times when the game comes out on the DS and it gets ported to the 3DS, it's like the definitive edition has more. It has like a little bit more story, or it has more content that's like, let's just toss it on there.
Yeah, there's that. And in some ways, like another favorite game is Devil Survivor Overclocked. So this is the strategy RPG in the Shin Megami Tensei universe. And this was also originally a DS game, but it was super hard on the DS. And so there are a lot of quality of life improvements to make it more approachable for all players to enjoy. And besides these, I also really love the Fire Emblem series. So I'm a very big Fire Emblem fan, and actually Awakening was my introductory into the strategy RPG. Yes,
it was my introduction to the Fire Emblem games, because I really wanted the Game Boy game when it first came out. Never got it. I never
knew of it when I was a kid, so
there was a show.
I didn't know about a lot of games.
Did you watch G4 back in the day?
I did.
Way back in the day?
I did, except it was mostly when they were covering like the PS2 and Wii stuff.
Yeah. There was a show on G4 that my brother and I loved called X-Play, and I would definitely say that show influenced a lot of our gaming purchases when we were younger.
My brother and I too, actually. I definitely bought Psychonauts because of them.
Oh, I wanted to get Fire Emblem because the biggest thing they said in that during their review of Fire Emblem was because I was playing Final Fantasy Tactics. I love Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. It was my first Final Fantasy Tactics game. I played that thing to death. I absolutely adore it. And then but in Final Fantasy Tactics, there's only excuse me, there's only one area of the game or a few certain areas of the game where if your characters get to 0 HP, they die. Like they're gone. But it's only certain areas. Whereas in the GBA Fire Emblem, their whole thing is like, yeah, this game is hard, but it's really cool because if your characters die, they die. They're gone for the rest of the game. And I'm just like, that's so cool.
When I first heard that concept, I was like, no, I don't want my favorite characters to die. But eventually I did move on to classic mode. But Awakening, I started with casual, which was really, I think, a great implementation.
Emily, era. I have to apologize if it seems like I'm trying to flex. I'm honest to God not. But when I finally got my hands on Awakening, I just jumped headfirst to the deep end of the classic mode. I'm like, I just like Leroy, like let's just do this. And I will say, the very final battle, there was a lot of times where I had characters I need to level up, and I would constantly restart battles because they would die because some enemy got a crit or I forgot about these enemies and they just would come out of the bushes, and I'm like, oh no. But I married, that I forgot her name. She's an older lady, the one with the glasses, and she's a mage. She has like the classic witch hat.
I'm forgetting her name too, but yes.
Yeah, but you know who I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I married her with the swordsman, that like super stoic or that super stirred like swordsman guy, whose name
I'm forgetting all the names now.
Yeah, but I married them. I freaking love them together, and they became like the best power couple in my army. And on the very last quest, the husband dies. And then he dies right in front of his wife. And then for the next 3 straight turns, enemies were going after her. You know what she does? Crits all of them. I'm just sitting there going, the power of love, man.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, Awakening was definitely my introduction to Fire Emblem. I also agree Fire Emblem Awakening is a must-have for the 3DS. I also say it's a good, since we missed out on the original one. I mean, thankfully we're going to be able to have access to the original one thanks to the GBA NSO stuff. Hallelujah, because that game, as we all know, is expensive. I'm not bitter. But yeah, I would highly agree. A lot of the games that you mentioned, though, I'm not familiar with, especially that one RPG. What was the name of it again?
Radiant Historia.
Yeah, that one.
That one's cool. Definitely check that one out. I would say when it comes to Fire Emblem on 3DS, my favorite's actually Echoes. I just really liked the story, how it was more story focused, and it was cool kind of having 2 different armies to navigate and go back and forth between. And I just really like the build up of that game. Some of the marriage stuff was kind of weird on Awakening, but like we kind of just went with it and the children.
Yeah. I mean, I loved that. I love those bits.
It was fun.
Yeah. I loved the marriage stuff. I love doing the extra side stuff because to me that was like cool, more level up, more battles to level up my characters. But also it's like who's parent, like you can obviously tell like who's kid,
Yeah. With the hair color changes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. I've actually played Awakening a couple of times, and I think by other playthroughs, I looked up like guides to like how to like max everyone out and the best marriage, configurations. That was kind of fun to go through for a second time.
I don't need to, but I would like to replay Awakening. But also I need to get back into Echoes. Echoes I was enjoying, but unfortunately I reached this one spot in Echoes and I just completely stopped. Yeah, so Echoes is definitely something I need to get back in. I want to get back into Three Houses. I have it. I did one playthrough of Three Houses on classic mode and with I did the Blue Lions run. now I'm doing my Golden Deer run on casual mode, and of course everyone's super OP. I'm just going through and wrecking fools, but at the same time, it's like, do I really want to play another 50, 60 some odd hours of this game?
Yeah, I haven't done all the routes either, or the DLC.
I did do the DLC.
I got kind of burned out after my first route. I was like, okay, I did this. Well, save the others for later.
Yeah. What route did you do, if you don't mind my asking?
I did Golden Deer first.
Ah, sweet. Yeah.
I love Claude. So.
Yeah, Claude. Dimitri, actually, you can't see, but Dedu's my boy. Oh. Yeah, hold up. Let me see if we can. There he is. Dedu.
Okay.
There we go. The same with the camera. Sometimes it's so weird, but yeah. I actually met the voice actor at the only convention I went to in 2020.
Oh.
It was Anime Impulse at Pomona, California. Got to meet him, and then a few months later, everything canceled. Everything got canceled. So you also have a few videos on the PlayStation Vita. And you were talking about how you bought an imported PlayStation Vita. What are some of the I would say, or I would ask, what are some of the pros and cons of buying video game systems internationally?
So I think specifically when buying from Japan, they take really good care of their systems. So unlike here in the US, you see all the like scratches, and usually the really pristine systems are really expensive. So I found just importing, especially PS Vita, and I've also imported a DS and PSP from Japan, and you could get it for a fraction of the cost and really great condition. They also have some cool color variants that are fun too. When it comes to the PS Vita, I feel like that's the easiest one to import because you could just change the language options really easily. The only, I guess, difference that you'll notice is the command button. Like instead of circle, it's X or something. It's like reverse the North American systems, but you get used to it.
Yeah, because I think when, like, if I remember correctly, when PlayStation first came out, the circle button is supposed to be like the yes command, whereas the X button's like no, get back. That's why A and B on a Nintendo controller, A is on the side and B is on the bottom. But for some reason, us Americans, we like, no, hit X instead.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how they reversed that for us.
Yeah, because I also have I have a PS Vita. I have an OLED model as well. And I will admit, I got that sucker modded because PlayStation Vita games, because I had, funny enough, I had two PlayStation Vita models, one from my brother and one from my best friend, a slim and a regular OLED. And I thought about going to buy physical games for it because at first modding kind of frightened me because I'm not very I just like putting in a thing, pushing a button, and boom, the game starts up. Whereas like, you have to make sure especially with modding, you have to make sure the system is set to these settings. You have to make sure it runs properly. Sometimes they don't. So with the PS Vita, I was definitely a little scared, but then I just decided to go ahead and mod it because looking at these PS Vita prices today are just like run for the hills. I think a lot of them are way more expensive than even 3DS games are.
It depends what games. The JRPGs that are niche, like very niche JRPGs, are very expensive, and the limited run releases are very expensive. But I feel like most of the first party games are fairly reasonable. You can get around 40 used. Like it's of course used. It's hard to find brand new Vita games in the West right now. And then I like collecting visual novels, and the Vita is my preferred system for visual novels. So most of those you can find fairly reasonably. There's just a few outliers, like the one from Limited Run. It's like over 100.
I bet. When is stuff from Limited Run not over $100?
I guess when it's a bad game and no one wants it. There are plenty of those.
Yeah, there definitely are. Although I finally caved when I was at Portland because Limited Run, they had a booth at Portland Retro Gaming Expo. They had River City Girls for the PS5. And at that point, I just said, F it. I just bought it.
You didn't wait for the 1 and 2 pack from Japan?
No, I was impatient.
If you want, you can always sell that and then get the double pack on the Switch or something. I think they have it for the PS4 too.
I could, but also at the same, because I did really want this game for the Switch. A lot of time, it's weird. A lot of when games come out like River City Girls or even Turtles, Shredder's Revenge, part of me feels like this game is just. I feel like it was made for the Switch. That 8-bit art style, the side-scrolling brawlers. I feel it was made for those systems, but then I ended up getting on the PS5 because they're either cheaper or they had the physical copy that I wanted. Such in the case of River City Girls and even Ninja Turtles. I bought Ninja Turtles because all my friends wanted it for the PS5, and we're also going to be streaming it soon on the main Base Arcade channel. So I'm like, okay, I'll just get. I mean, still, it's an amazing
Is that one
game.
still restricted to the console type? Is who you could do online with?
I don't think so.
I thought it was that game, at least around launch. That was the case. Maybe not.
Maybe. I don't know if it's cross. I don't know if it's cross play, but it might be cross generation. I mean, I'm not, because I do know that there's technically no like true PS5 version for Shredder's Revenge. It's technically just made for the PS4, and since the PS5 is backwards compatible, as long as you have the PS4 version downloaded, you can play with other people who have it on the PS4 or even the PS5.
Okay.
Yeah, at least that's my guess, because when I bought the game, it just said PS4. There was no true PS5 version of it, and really there doesn't need to be because it's 16-bit art style anyway.
For sure, yeah.
But yeah, going back to Limited Run, you also had a video about variants and reprintings that really piqued my interest, because I also collect, or I used to collect comic books. Then in the world of comic books and that area, there's a bunch. There's like variant covers for so many different issues. Like you have anniversaries, you have all these special events. There's all these different variant covers, connecting covers. And I never knew video games had the same thing until about say a year and a half ago, when I was just scrolling through Twitter and someone said, "Hey, Best Buy has the limited run variant covers of Shantae, of the first game and Risky's Revenge. Go get them now." And I got very lucky. So how did you find out about video game variant covers?
I guess I do like to scroll a lot on like Twitter and all the different websites. I think PlayAsia is a great resource to seeing what regional differences there are. So you can see that. But yeah, I would say mostly Twitter is my news source when it comes to variants and people tweeting about, or different companies tweeting about different variant covers, or if this just came to retail, or you can buy fund a Kickstarter to get this variant cover, that kind of thing.
All right, and in that same video, you taught people about how to find out if your game is a first print or a second print or whatever. Which now I kind of want to check to see what kind of prints I have, to be perfectly honest. But how can someone find out if, like, obviously with the 3DS, there's the Nintendo Select. That's definitely a massive reprint. But how can you find out if a game is a first or second print on a 3DS game?
So when it comes to cart revisions, I don't think there's been any evidence that the carts themselves have been revised like we see on the Switch. But when it comes to the cover revisions, usually sometimes like in California, they had to add stuff about like Prop 65, the cancer thing. Like to warn people like, oh, this might have a 0.0001% of causing cancer. That's what our lovely state does.
Yeah.
But
I can't tell you how many times I go to Disneyland and I see that prop thing at when I'm trying to park my car, and I'm just like,
it's unnecessary. Okay. And there's so many lawsuits around it when people don't be able to do it. It's such a waste of time.
California, I love you, but there are times I just look at you and go, really? Especially when I'm paying for gas. But that's neither here nor there. Let's not go down that depressing rabbit hole, shall we?
No. But yeah, I mentioned in the videos, when it comes to the cover cases, you could tell right away if something is a first print or a second print and beyond. We see this a lot, both with the 3DS and the Switch. But again, yeah, the carts, you can only really, I think, identify this on a Switch game cart, not on a 3DS, if there's been changes. The Nintendo Select versions are revised, so they should have the DLC. Like I know for Animal Crossing, if you compare the two carts from the original release and the one with the Welcome Amiibo, the Welcome Amiibo one has more updates on the physical cart, which is nice. So as a collector, that's usually what I try to strive for. And I've been trying to be more diligent doing that with my Switch collection. Like, for example, the upcoming Celeste retail release, I have a feeling that's going to be a revised cart from Fangamer compared to what Limited Run had offered, both with their numbered release on their website and the Best Buy variant.
I actually didn't know Celeste was getting a retail release, and now I'm like, give me.
Yep.
I've
you can
seen
get a limited edition on Fangamer right now, or I think a lot of other retailers are stocking it. So, like, if you go to Best Buy's website and just pre-order it with free shipping.
I might just do that. I mean, when I do eventually have some extra money for games, because the backlog be real.
Yeah. Target just did a buy one get one half off or something, and I was tempted to they had Celeste as an option. I was tempted to group that, and Coffee Talk is also getting a retail release. You're familiar with that one? That one had a strictly limited special edition that was really expensive for a while, and now it's on retail.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah,
I'm not familiar with that, but
it's like, have you heard of Valhalla, or the bartending game? So the Coffee Talk is just a visual novel where you make people coffee and lattes and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I technically signed up with LRG, so I get almost every Thursday and Friday, I get emails like, this is what's coming up today. And 9 times out of 10, I'm looking at this and I go, I don't care. I'm like, this game. I mean, really, the only game that I really wanted there were 3 games I really wanted from LRG when they first came out. The Doom collection, which I did get, and I was actually very upset that it took so damn long for me to get it. River City Girls, which I got thankfully at their booth, and also Panzer Paladin, because they did an LRG release of the physical game. Even though I already had the game digitally, because I thought it was just so cool, I definitely double dipped, and I eventually did get a physical copy of Panzer Paladin. But then looking at all the different Shantae games, it feels like Limited Run has like a monopoly on a bunch of Way Forward games, such mostly the Shantae series.
I think they have some special contract with them for sure, and a few other publishers. Like, they just got Night in the Woods, which they're also the same publisher that works with Tunic. So I'm worried they're going to also release a Tunic physical over there, the Fox Zelda game.
I heard good things about Tunic.
I played a little bit of it, and it's really good. I'm waiting for a physical release, though, to finally commit.
Yeah, don't you just hate when it's like, man, I really want to get this game. Where's the physical release? No physical release? Damn it.
Yeah, and it's really popular, so it's going to get something eventually. Most of them do.
Mm-hmm. So you also, I mean, we were talking about earlier, like with the world editions, buying games internationally and buying other things internationally. Mm-hmm. What are some of your like absolute favorite websites and places to go to buy games internationally?
So the easiest one that most people, I think, are aware of is PlayAsia. So they do, they cover most of Asia. So there are regular like Asian releases, Hong Kong releases, Japanese releases. They may or may not have English on them. But their listing is very detailed, and they'll tell you if there's English or not on those. Amazon Japan is also one that you could directly buy from, and you don't have to go through a proxy service to have it shipped to your country, which is nice. For most of the listings, some of the third parties, they don't. I'm usually pretty pleased with them, and they have pretty cheap, like DHL shipping rates. And I guess outside of those two, I really like Canadian websites, if you consider that international. So Video Games Plus and PvP Games, I've been buying quite a lot there, and it's really easy here in the US because they just drive up to the border and then ship it through USPS. So you get them pretty quickly, which is nice.
And do those Canadian websites, do they also have like the world editions of certain games? Because I'll definitely gonna start looking into the world editions of certain 3DS titles, because I really want those right now.
Yeah, I think actually they also have just standard editions too at good prices. They have they list it in Canadian dollars, and so you go through on PayPal or pay with the credit card to buy it in USD. And they have a lot of good titles that saw re-releases that you don't really see here in the US. It's usually really marked up on eBay. So definitely, I think, a good place to look. And for new games, they do clearly mark if it's a world edition or not. The used games on PMP games is mixed. So just like a lot of other like mom and pop shops here, I think, I don't know if you're familiar with Double Jump Games. They have a YouTube channel, and they also have a store out in Washington.
I did buy. Yeah, I bought some games from Double Jump. I did.
They were at PRG, I think that's
right.
They had a huge booth.
Oh yeah, I was at that booth. I was talking to someone to get information for an article I'm working on, and also I wanted to say I tried to get. Actually, that's where I bought whatchamacallit, Advance Wars. I got Advance Wars Dual Strike, but I was supposed to buy Luigi's Mansion for the 3DS, but they screwed up.
Oh.
What they did was because they had the game cases up in front, and the games themselves were in the back, which it's like, okay, smart. So that way people can't go ahead and steal the games.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was that someone bought Dark Moon, but when the person put the game inside Dark Moon, they accidentally put Luigi's Mansion. And so essentially they mixed it up. So when I went to go buy the original Luigi's Mansion for, I think they were selling it for $50. I go to pay for it. They can't find it. And they're like, and I already gave them my money. So they're just sitting there like, and they're like, what can we do to make this right? And I'm like, can I just pick another game at the same price? And like, yeah, go for it. Advance Wars.
That's good. I'm sure the refund situation is a mess.
I can only assume it is. And also, I just really hope that the person who goes home and opens up Dark Moon and finds the original Luigi's Mansion, they go, "Hey, wait a minute!" They can at least call up and be like, "Yo, you messed up." It's like, "Yeah, we know. We're sorry. Here's the game. Here's the original."
Well, hopefully, they're also looking for that game, but they bought the cheaper game because I imagine Dark Moon's much cheaper than the remaster. At least that's what I've been seeing online.
Yeah, I want to say maybe because after the original Luigi's Mansion came out, excuse me, when it was on the 3DS, I want to say I've seen it at other places for about maybe $25 or like $35. So I mean, there's a where I live, there's a kind of like a nerd swap meet very close to me called Frankenson Collectible Show. It essentially it's just like this giant nerd swap meet. They have a bunch of people selling video games as well. And sometimes I've gotten some pretty decent deals out of there. So
nice.
Definitely have to go back and check us. But once again, backlog be real, and also bank account be hurting.
Yep. I feel you there, especially when you collect for so many different systems, and you have some companies like Limited Run who make you have like FOMO and having to buy something right away, even though you won't be playing it anytime soon. It's challenging to balance.
I was this close to buying the physical version of Shredder's Revenge, but because it was limited run, because I knew how long they were going to take to get that to me, I did not pull the trigger. I wanted to play the game now or sooner rather than later, which I did. Had an amazing time. My girlfriend loved playing it. Can't wait to play with my friends online. And then 6 months later, people are like, here's my limited run version of Shredder's Revenge. I'm like, cool. I beat that game 3 times already.
Yep.
So yeah, I have.
Like, I understand the model. It's better than them limiting things like some other companies do, where we only have 5,000 copies. First come, first serve. That's always disappointing.
Especially when someone really wants a physical copy of River City Girls, because one time they're like, hey, River City Girls, I missed out on it, darn it. Then they're like, hey, we have some convention exclusives, like, the variants. And I'm like, hopefully they have a lot. I was up at 7 a.m. I went to the website. I tried to get it, and it kept saying, you have 3 games in your cart. I'm like, I don't want 3. I want 1. 10 minutes later, I finally get it down to 1, sold out.
It's always disappointing. Yeah. I participated in the most recent blowout sale. I was trying to get the Jack and Daxter PS4 collector's edition. But that sold out like instantly. That was sad.
Damn it, I should have gotten the Actually, no, I could thankfully, because on my PS5, I'm also shilling money out for the PlayStation Plus Premium. So those games I can play thanks to that. So, okay.
It's one of my favorites. I just wanted the big box. I'm hoping that they'll make a PS5 version, but who knows?
True. But there is a chance. There is a
Yes.
very slim chance. Now, before we get out of here today, Emily, I really want to talk to you about the Nintendo Direct.
Mhm.
Especially because we mentioned earlier about the Etrian and Odyssey games, how they are getting a Switch port to the Switch, and of course we have the news of the Game Boy Advance. I watched your video. I know you weren't like oh hey that's cool. Whereas when I saw it, I was like yeah. That has been on my Christmas wish list for a very long time. But I know we were talking earlier about you don't really know what games can be ported to the Switch, but out of curiosity, if there is any game that you think could be ported from the 3DS to the Switch, just like it should be an easy transition, what would some of the best games possibly would be to be ported from the 3DS to the Switch?
I think there are a lot. Like I feel like when it comes to 3DS versus the original DS, there's not a lot of games that really utilize that bottom screen. So I think a lot of those games could definitely be ported. I think the popular games like Fire Emblem Awakening, Shin Megami Tensei 4, those might eventually get maybe Switch or whatever the next Switch will be, remasters or ports. And with Level 5's return, we might see a lot of HD remasters of like the Professor Layton games, the first Fantasy Life, if that sequel gets sells as well as I think it might be, or it might will. And let's see. Outside of that, what else would be good?
There's a
lot of things that I think are rumored. Like, I know there's been a lot of rumors for the Bravely Default and Second Layer to get Switch remasters. So we could see that. One of the last new Nintendo IPs that didn't get a lot of traction because it was at the end of the 3DS life cycle is Ever Oasis. So I could see them trying with that again. But yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see where Nintendo moves forward with the 3DS and ports or remasters. And I guess if they want to, take from that catalog or something further back going forward.
Yeah, every time a game gets remastered, or a game from a system like the 3DS or even the DS gets remastered or bundled in a collection to be put on modern consoles, that just gives me hope because that means there's a chance. There's a chance that other games that we've loved back when we were kids that have gotten absolutely no love whatsoever. In my case, Mega Man Legends, I will die on the hill that Mega Man Legends is amazing, and I am still salty at Capcom for not giving us Mega Man Legends 3. Damn you all. Sorry, still really mad about that. But now that we got the Mega Man Zero and the ZX games fully completed for modern consoles. We're getting the Battle Network game.
Yeah.
We're getting Battle Network. We have X and the original games all ready to go. We're just missing Legends. Hurry up, Capcom. I'm patient. I'm very patient, but you're stretching it. But stuff like the Etrian and Odyssey games, I definitely feel that there might be chances for other series. I feel like the Shin Megami Tensei games or even the other Atlas games, since they didn't necessarily utilize the bottom screen all that much, could be perfect candidates because I never really got into the Shin Megami Tensei games or a bunch of other Atlas titles. And now that Atlas has this huge resurgence, or I wouldn't even say resurgence, but it's now in the limelight with games like Persona, with games, and of course Shin Megami Tensei 5 was a Switch exclusive. It was a Switch exclusive, correct?
Initially, yes. I think it still is.
I want to say it is, but
it's possible it might go to PC or something later.
Yeah, but still, Shin Megami Tensei 5, huge news. A lot of people were so excited. The re-release of Nocturne, Shin Megami Tensei 3 for the Switch. I definitely feel that a lot of those older 3DS games have a chance. I mean, I say they have better chances than none. I do agree. Awakening could also see a remaster. That would be pretty cool. I probably wouldn't get it right off the bat, but if they added more dungeons, maybe Link Between Worlds.
Yeah. I probably would in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be sad though for some of these games to be lost on that system.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think if they do ports or remasters, it's going to be a while.
Yeah,
it's like Metroid Prime. When did that come out originally?
Just like 2002 or something like that.
Yeah, so it took them However many years.
Yeah. I mean, they did re-release the entire trilogy on the Wii. So
they did? Okay.
So
I
guess
technically that's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, air quotes technically. They just remastered, or they remastered the game from the GameCube to the Wii just with motion controls, because you had the Wiimote. But yeah, I've been wanting a Metroid Prime remastered for a long time, mostly because I never played the original Metroid Prime. And I just recently fell in love with the entirety of the Metroid series. I beat all the 2D games leading up to Metroid Dread. And now I'm just clamoring and foaming at the mouth for anything for Metroid Prime 4. And now we're getting the remaster on the Switch. So I was like, yay!
Yeah. So I think overall, there's a chance of a lot of the Nintendo IPs to get remastered to the Switch or beyond. I think just a lot of these third-party like publishing companies, like there are a couple that actually no longer are there. Like the people who made Stella Glow, their studio shut down. So the possibility of that getting a port or remaster in the future, I think is very slim. So I think, yeah, you have to be kind of careful with those titles rather than the studios that are still doing well and still popular right now.
Yeah, it's definitely always hard to get games from games from studios, or at least remasters of games from studios that have closed down, because we still don't know who owns the rights to certain games. A lot of people, at least in my Twitterverse or my timeline, they constantly talk about, like, we need Illusion of Gaia, we need all these old SNES RPGs to be ported or remastered in some way so newer generations can have them, but we just don't know who owns the rights to these games. It's just, it's a hodgepodge. We don't know. And whoever is owning the rights is just hoarding them like a dragon, essentially. They're Smaug underneath the Erebor.
Yeah, like look at the Xeno franchise. Like Xenosaga is with Square Enix, Xenosaga is with Bandai Namco. Xenogears is with Square Enix, and then Xenoblade right now is with Nintendo. So they're all these different places that are you can find these games, but it's hard to know when some of these publishers will commit to remasters or ports. And then we just saw Tales of Symphonia just got a remaster, but it wasn't very good on the Switch, unfortunately.
It's not?
It got totally panned.
No, I was going to buy it for the Switch. No!
So they recommend don't buy it for the Switch, buy it for the PlayStation. Or play the PS3 version. Yeah. It's really disheartening. I've never played it before. I was really looking forward to it, but then I just saw the reviews recently. Like the load screens, everything's just bad, and it doesn't look good.
You're breaking. Oh my. Okay, you're not breaking my heart, but this news is breaking my heart. I was so excited for Tales of that was. I mean, I got Tales of Arise from I got really lucky on Tales of Arise because I went to a GameStop. They had one copy left. It was on sale for $30. I figured, screw it, I'm just gonna go ahead and nab it. And I had been I watched the completionist video about it. A lot of my other friends were telling me how amazing Tales of Symphonia is. It's like up there in the echelon of GameCube games or even PS3 games. And I'm like, I need to experience this game. It's it's stupid expensive. I don't have a GameCube. I was just like, please remaster it. The news of the remaster was like, finally. To hear that, because I wanted it for my Switch. I wanted to play it on like that Nintendo console, but well, at least it's good.
I was crushed too. Like, oh no.
I mean,
maybe they'll patch it, but it's not looking good.
Damn it!
That also you have to be. So I think this is a perfect example of you have to be careful of relying on ports and remasters for some of these titles.
Definitely one port or one remaster of a game that definitely, when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, neat. But when the game came out, it was critically panned. Secret of Mana remaster for the PS4. Now that game, talk about an ass kicking on how fans of the original just absolutely hated it. And then lo and behold, sometime later, we get the collection of Mana that has the original SNES version on it, playable on Switch, playable on modern consoles. No harm, no foul. And even whatchamacallit. I mean, I have Trials of Mana. I enjoy that game. I think that game's fun. It's really easy, but it's really fun for me. But also, like, Trials of Mana or Secret of Mana came out in the SNES, instant buy. Now we get a collection of Mana, and then they come out the remaster, and the remaster sucked. Everyone's going to collection of Mana instead. So, But yeah, you are absolutely right. We got to be careful of certain remasters because it's great they are remastering, but now that I know it sucks on the Switch, I'm definitely buying it for the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a bummer, though.
Yeah.
Man, I had no clue. I was just gonna go ahead and buy it on the Switch and be
I'm
like,
glad I
"Yay!"
warned you then.
I am very glad you warned me. I'm gonna have to update my Amazon wish list now. All right. Well, Emily, I believe that about does it. Thank you so very much for coming on the show and talking about the 3DS and essentially just going into the world of buying games internationally. Now I think I have a better understanding and a much better heading instead of just going to a website and throwing darts at the board.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on, and it was fun chatting about all of our, nostalgia for these different games and systems, and our love for collecting.
Well, if you want to come back and chat again, you have an open invite. So, Emily, before we get out of here, where can people find you on the internet?
So I am at Orbalology on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. So those are all my main social contact areas.
And of course, check out her. Wait, there she is. Check out her YouTube channel. It's really great, very informative, very educational. That's where I learned about how to check out if my Nintendo Switch games are first prints or not. So yeah, Emily, once again, thank you again so much. Hopefully we can snag all those games until the eShop closes. Because as of this recording, the eShop is still open. You got about a month and a half. You got about half a month, or less than a month until it completely goes kaput. So start saving or take out, or okay, don't take a loan. Loans are bad. Don't do that. But yeah,
definitely prioritize what you want to get before prices start to.
Yeah, definitely do that. But anyways, until next time, unpause.